In 2018, researchers scanned the Pacific's depths and uncovered what many believed lost forever. A United States light cruiser, shattered but unmistakable 16,800 feet down. This was USS Helena, once the iron hammer of Pearl Harbor's defense, now the deepest American cruiser wreck ever found. How did the Navy's Fighting Lady of the Solomons endure a torpedo storm, rescue her crew, and vanish into the abyss for 75 years? The truth behind her rise, sacrifice, and rediscovery rewrites naval legend. New York. The first lines of Helena's blueprints took shape at the New York Navy Yard in 1936, as the world's navies raced to balance speed, firepower, and treaty limits. She belonged to the Brooklyn class, a new breed of American light cruiser designed to outgun rivals while staying nimble enough for Pacific patrols. Her hull stretched 608 feet from bow to stern, with a beam of 61 feet and a displacement just under 9,700 tons. On paper, Helena could reach 32.5 knots, faster than most battleships and able to keep pace with destroyer escorts. Main battery. What set her apart was the main battery. 15 6-inch guns arranged in 5 triple turrets, 3 forward and 2 aft. This layout promised a broadside unmatched by any other cruiser in her weight class. 8 dual-purpose 5-inch mounts ringed her superstructure, ready to answer both surface threats and aircraft. Designers added torpedo tubes and, as war loomed, bristling anti-aircraft batteries, Bofors and Oerlikons, crowded her decks by 1942. Every inch of steel served a purpose: to deliver rapid, concentrated fire while absorbing punishment. Machinery. Helena's hull was built for the open ocean, but her heart lay in her machinery spaces. 4 steam turbines, fed by oil-fired boilers, drove her propellers. In trials, she reached her rated speed with ease, a testament to the engineering beneath her armored deck. Catapult mounts amidships launched reconnaissance float planes, extending her eyes beyond the horizon. By the time she was commissioned on September 18, 1939, Helena embodied the Navy's vision of a fighting ship, one that could take a hit and strike back harder. Her design would soon be tested in the crucible of the Pacific. December 7, 1941. Helena lay moored at 1010 Dock in Pearl Harbor, pressed between the mine layer Oglala and the battleship Pennsylvania. Just before 8 in the morning, the first wave of Japanese torpedo bombers swept in low over the water. One torpedo meant for Pennsylvania veered off and slammed into Helena's starboard side, tearing through the machinery spaces. The blast ripped open the hull, flooding compartments and sending a shockwave through the decks. 34 men were killed instantly, dozens more wounded. Smoke and confusion filled the ship, but discipline held. Within minutes, crewmen, some still dazed by the explosion, rushed to their battle stations. Ammunition handlers passed shells hand to hand up ladders slick with oil and water. Gunners brought the 5-inch mounts to bear, sighting on the dark shapes of enemy planes as they wheeled for another attack. Helena's anti-aircraft batteries roared to life, firing hundreds of shells into the sky. She was the first cruiser in the harbor to return fire that morning, her guns blazing even as damage control teams fought flooding below. The torpedo had jammed the forward engine room doors and knocked out power to sections of the ship. Still, the crew worked by flashlight, sealing off flooded compartments and dragging the wounded to makeshift aid stations. On deck, men braced as more bombs fell nearby. Through the chaos, orders from the bridge cut through the noise. Hold the line, keep firing, save the ship. By the time the attack subsided, Helena's decks were scarred and her crew exhausted. But the ship remained afloat. Temporary repairs began almost immediately, with sailors welding patches over the torn plates. That morning, under sudden attack and heavy loss, Helena's crew showed a resolve that would define them throughout the war. Their first trial by fire had come without warning, and they had answered together. Combat in the Solomons demanded more than raw steel and speed. It demanded a ship that could answer every threat with overwhelming force. Helena's gunners, hardened by Pearl Harbor and relentless drills, delivered that answer with a precision and tempo that set them apart. In the months after her return to the Pacific, Helena's main battery became a fixture of every major engagement, her triple turrets unleashing storms of 6-inch shells into the night. By late 1942, her gun crews had fired over 1,500 rounds from the main battery alone, a tally unmatched by any other American cruiser at that stage of the war. Navy logs from the Guadalcanal campaign record Helena's guns hammering shore positions, silencing batteries, and breaking up enemy troop movements before they could threaten Allied landings. Her salvos swept across the jungle and surf, each broadside timed so closely it seemed the ship breathed fire. During night actions, the rhythm of her guns, nearly every 6 seconds, became a signature on the dark waters, a warning to any adversary who dared approach. The pace was grueling, but the results spoke for themselves. Helena earned a reputation among fleet commanders and enemy observers alike as the ship that delivered when it mattered most. Her gunnery officers demanded nothing less than perfection, and the crew responded, keeping ammunition flowing and barrels cool even as battles stretched into the early hours. In action reports, she was called Lucky Helena, a nod not only to her survival, but to the fighting spirit that seemed to animate every man aboard. As the Solomons campaign ground on, Helena's firepower became a force multiplier for Allied operations. Her presence in a task force meant confidence. Her name on the signal board meant the odds had shifted. By the end of 1942, Helena was not just another cruiser. She was the ship others counted on when the fighting grew desperate and the outcome hung in the balance. In the summer of 1943, the Allied command faced a hard reality in the South Pacific. Japanese supply lines snaked down from Rabaul, feeding strongholds across the Solomon Islands and threatening every Allied advance. Operation Cartwheel set its sights on New Georgia, aiming to cut these arteries and strangle Japan's reach. The plan demanded more than brute force. It required swift, coordinated strikes deep into enemy waters, where every mile brought new risks. Task Group 36.1 formed the sharp edge of this strategy. USS Helena, USS St. Louis, and USS Honolulu, 3 Brooklyn-class cruisers, were paired with destroyers to sweep the Kula Gulf under cover of darkness. Their orders were simple: intercept Japanese reinforcements bound for Kolombangara and keep the invasion beaches at Rendova and New Georgia secure. The timing was precise. On July 5, 1943, as Marines dug in ashore, the cruisers slipped from Tulagi, threading through narrow channels mapped by reconnaissance and coast watchers. Every move was calculated to avoid enemy spotters and to maximize the element of surprise. Maps in Allied war rooms traced the supply routes like veins across the sea. Japanese convoys ran nightly, hugging the northern coastlines, protected by destroyers armed with the deadly Long Lance torpedo. To break this chain, the Americans needed speed, firepower, and the ability to fight in the blackness of night. Helena and her sisters were chosen for their rapid-firing guns and proven discipline under fire. Their formation, cruisers in line ahead, destroyers screening fore and aft, was designed for maximum striking power and mutual protection. Every officer understood what was at stake. If the Japanese broke through, they could reinforce Kolombangara and threaten the entire Cartwheel offensive. If the cruisers succeeded, they would isolate enemy garrisons and open the way for Allied control of the Central Solomons. The outcome would hinge on a handful of ships moving through a narrow stretch of water, guided by radar, and the hope that their presence would turn the tide. Radar pulses swept the black water ahead, painting the outlines of distant ships long before any lookout could spot a silhouette. Helena's SG radar, the most advanced in the Pacific, tracked the enemy task force as it slipped through the Kula Gulf. The system's precision gave the Americans a rare edge, one they had wielded to devastating effect just months earlier at Cape Esperance. There, on October 12, 1942, Helena's gunnery officers had used radar to guide their opening salvos, catching Japanese cruisers by surprise and helping sink two in minutes. That victory set a precedent. In the Solomons, the night belonged to the ships that could see through darkness. Now, Helena held the center of the formation, her radar operators calling out bearings and ranges as new contacts appeared. The enemy destroyers moved fast, relying on speed and discipline, but their approach could not escape the radar sweep. Every officer on the bridge knew what these ships carried. Type 93 Long Lance torpedoes, the most feared weapon in the Japanese arsenal. Capable of running more than 20 miles at almost 50 knots, they struck without warning, invisible beneath the waves. Aboard Helena, the gun crews stood ready. Ammunition handlers loaded shells into the breeches, each turret crew drilled to keep up a relentless pace. In the opening moments, the main battery could unleash a broadside nearly every 6 seconds, faster than any other ship afloat. The first flashes of gunfire cut through the night, the rhythm of the turrets echoing across the water. Each salvo found its mark by radar, not by sight, and the Japanese ships shuddered under the barrage. Confidence ran high in those early minutes. The Americans had the initiative, their technology and training turning darkness into an ally. But the enemy was closing, and every man aboard Helena understood that radar, for all its power, could not stop a torpedo already in the water. The battle's opening belonged to the gunners. What came next would test the ship's luck and the crew's resolve. First strike, 12:57 a.m. The first Long Lance torpedo strikes Helena forward of the bridge, just below the waterline near the boiler rooms. Steel plates buckle. Compartments flood in seconds. Lights flicker as electrical circuits short out, but the guns keep firing. In the plotting room, men scramble to hold the line, even as seawater pours into the lower decks. Second strike, 12:59 a.m. A second torpedo slams into the ship's midsection. The explosion tears through the hull with brutal force, nearly splitting Helena in two. Bulkheads crumple. Steam lines rupture. The deck heaves underfoot as the ship's spine begins to give way. Amid the chaos, turret crews fight to maintain their rhythm, shells still flowing up from magazines now filling with water. The sound of rending metal drowns out orders from above. In the engine spaces, men are thrown from their posts as machinery tears loose from its mounts. Third strike. 1:05 a.m. The third torpedo finds its mark amidships. The blast is catastrophic. Water floods through the shattered hull, sweeping through passageways, swallowing compartments whole. The bow and stern rise, twisting apart as the center of the ship collapses. Sections of deck buckle and snap. The forward superstructure tilts, then slides away into the black water. Fires break out along the wreckage, flickering briefly before the sea claims them. Within minutes, Helena's fate is sealed. The ship lurches violently, breaking into three main sections. The bow and stern, momentarily upright, slip beneath the surface. Hundreds of crewmen are hurled into the oil-slicked sea, some still clinging to life rafts, others grasping at floating debris. The thunder of gunfire is replaced by the rush of water and the cries of men scattered in the darkness. Above them, the surface closes, leaving only wreckage and silence where a fighting ship once stood. More than 600 men plunged into the black water, their ship gone beneath them. Oil slicks burned their eyes and coated their skin, while the wreckage drifted in slow circles. Some clung to battered rafts, others to planks or empty cans, counting hours by the changing sky. For 3 days, the currents scattered survivors across miles of open sea. Sharks circled, wounds festered, and thirst gnawed at every thought. Lieutenant Commander Harold Larson gathered his group on a drifting raft, rationing what little water remained and keeping spirits from breaking. On distant shores, Solomon Islanders spotted the castaways. Guided by coast watchers like Reg Evans, Islanders risked their own lives, slipping past Japanese patrols in dugout canoes to bring the Americans food, water, and hope. In the end, 275 men were rescued, some hidden for days in jungle huts, others ferried to safety under cover of darkness. 168 never returned. Every survivor owed his life to the courage of strangers who answered their distress. 3.5 hours after the remotely operated vehicle slipped beneath the Solomon Sea, the cameras settled on a battered hull resting at 16,800 feet, deeper than any American cruiser ever found. The first clear sweep of the stern revealed a single, unmistakable detail: the hull number 50, still visible through decades of silt and corrosion. To the petrol expedition leader, it was the final proof. Photogrammetry confirmed the triple 6-inch turrets unique to Helena's class, while catapult mounts for float planes and the radar pedestal, once the ship's technological edge, remained in place atop the bridge. The wreck lay in 3 main sections, precisely as survivor accounts and wartime reports described after the night of July 6, 1943. Forensic mapping matched the orientation and breakpoints to the torpedo impacts recorded in 1943 logs. In the words of the expedition's maritime archaeologist, every feature, every wound, matches the ship and the story. There is no doubt this is Helena. USS Helena's final resting place is protected by more than ocean depth. Under the Sunken Military Craft Act of 2004, her wreck is recognized as a war grave, off limits to salvage and shielded from disturbance by law and by principle. This statute ensures that Helena remains undisturbed, a promise kept to those who served and to those who wait ashore. Navy legal counsel affirms that any unauthorized intrusion is not just illegal, it is a violation of the respect owed to the fallen. For the families, this protection carries weight. When the discovery was confirmed, the Navy organized virtual briefings, connecting descendants with historians and expedition leaders. Some brought old photographs. Others shared stories handed down across 3 generations. Together, they honored 7 battle stars, the most awarded to any Brooklyn-class cruiser, and the ship's enduring motto, "Strike fast, strike hard." Helena's legacy now rests not only in the records of battle, but in the shared commitment to memory and reverence, guarded by law and by living remembrance. Today, Helena's wreck lies protected under United States law, a silent witness to the price of conflict and the resilience of those who serve. As oceans yield up their secrets, each discovery renews our duty to remember, not just the metal, but the human cost. Some losses echo far below the surface, asking if we still hear their call.